Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Andzen approach. My name's Jason, the strategic director at Andzen. I'm joined today by Jess, principal CSM at Klaviyo.
Hi.
And Jeremy, senior partner manager at Klaviyo.
Hey, Jason.
And of course, I've got Brendan with me as well, the founder at Andzen.
Hello, hello, hello.
All right, guys. So we're back in Sydney. It's a beautiful day.
Beautiful day. It's actually getting quite warm here by the window.
Yeah.
Recording the morning, so we have a couple of mimosas here. Lovely way to start the podcast episode. A bit of a tradition.
Also, Brendan, can I just say this is a very much Goldilocks moment for me with the 3 bears.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being a part of it. So. AI, we can't go an episode without mentioning AI. Let's get it out of the way to begin with. Klaviyo AI, who's going to take the floor?
Yeah, I'm keen. Jeremy, maybe we were talking a little bit about this earlier, but yeah, if we could maybe touch on a couple of features each. Like Klaviyo has released a lot of features recently around AI, a little bit around the machine learning stuff that's kind of being rebranded, but I think it all comes together to create the same experience within Klaviyo. So I'm keen to hear from you guys about some of the most popular features or maybe your personal favorite features that have released.
Yeah, absolutely. So AI is really interesting because like a lot of marketing tech companies have been doing some form of AI for quite a few years now. We had things like machine learning, which conveniently got rebranded a little bit now to AI, and so I've been looking at this type of tech for a little while, but I think it came to everyone's consciousness when we started looking at generative AI, and then that became that became out there for the public to use with things like ChatGPT and what have you. When it comes down to things like generative AI, we've done some really exciting things. 2 of my favorites are the natural language segmentation and flow builders that have sort of come out this year with Klaviyo. I remember we were in our office, I was sitting with a few of my colleagues, and they said, "Oh, you guys need to learn how to utilize this stuff." And then I went in there and I just started typing away and generating segments without any real sort of Boolean knowledge. I didn't have to know it.
If you don't understand the and or rule set in the platform, you can just get started. And start putting in I want to build a list of people who've opened the email in the last couple of months but haven't made a purchase. Perhaps they're also opted in for SMS, and off you go. And
you know what?
Out that rule set.
It's a really good tester for like. I think there's a segment here that is going to be substantial, but I can't be bothered to sit down and actually type out all the operators for it. I just say maybe people that have purchased things that are in this size, or
even just quickly brainstorm, right? Like just keep refining what you're asking of that AI to say, okay, well, when I did it like that, there was only 500, but what if I change this? And it feels much more conversation and natural, right? We're part of the natural language part of it. Compared to sitting there staring at a screen going, okay, what if I click this drop down and I choose placeholder, and then how many days do I have to type in here? And is it between those dates, or is it more than before those dates?
And it's not super hard if you're used to it, and if you can jump in and do it. But once again, it's just a low barrier to entry in terms of skill, like to actually utilize that, and really allows you to just test out your ideas, which is what I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah. It's interesting, Jeremy, you mentioned there's a bunch of investment going into AI at the moment. There's a Goldman Sachs report, which maybe we can link to somewhere in the notes, but basically it says there's $1 trillion investment going into AI over the next few years, just from the major 4. So Meta's, OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. And this report interviews a bunch of tech C-suite, and it says, what's the ROI going to be? How are people going to use it? And they basically just said, we don't know what it's going to look like yet, but everyone kind of has to invest now to make sure that we're in the running to be either that big platform that monopolizes, or everyone's kind of got a niche and have their own functions. And
you want to secure your market share.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's interesting to start there, but then from a Klaviyo perspective, our AI report just came out as well, and we kind of refine AI into 3 buckets, which is obviously generative, which is what we were talking about just then, predictive, and then optimize AI as well. And there's obviously other types, but that's where we're sitting at the moment, mostly because part of our roadmap this year is really about making it easier for our customers and making sure that if you're using Klaviyo, that you've got confidence there to hit go. So for the example you gave before, like in the past, it's kind of been tricky. Sometimes you second guess yourself. You go, oh, did I get the and right? Is it supposed to be an or? But in this case, it's like having a second pair of eyes to say, yep, got it, hit go.
Yeah. So is Klaviyo going to put agencies like Andzen out of business with all this AI?
No, we rely on them way too much. We really do.
Says the senior partner manager.
Says the senior partner manager from Klaviyo,
But no, it is there to make it easier, and sort of this is why we're a Klaviyo partner. And this is why we always have been. Picking Klaviyo, I mean, it's easy for the user and the end customer to actually use the platform themselves. And at the end of the day, we don't own the Klaviyo account for them, right? Like we set up the flows. They come in, they do their campaigns, they still have to use the account themselves, they still have to operate it. And for us as well, we can do things quicker because it's easy to use. And I think, the AI tools and functionality is just an extension of that. And then we can focus on some of the more complex things like, Klaviyo CDP, advanced analytics, a lot more of the reporting for clients.
Yeah, the cool marketing stuff.
Yeah, that's it. And I think also like a lot of these features are really helpful for brands to think about scale in a better way. So I was on a call yesterday as an example, large Australian fashion brand, they've got a Australian store, they've got a US store, and their head of digital had gone through a massive exercise last year to really understand what were the kind of the purchase times for the different cohorts that they had. So first order to second order, second to third, really trying to map out the cadence of those shopping times, the average order value, things like that. We were having a conversation where he was saying they did all that work and they kind of structured some of their ads, but when they looked at Klaviyo, when it came to thinking, how are we going to set up a post-purchase flow that leverages each individual time frame for all these different cohorts, it became like a really daunting thing. And then I was talking to him, well, there's this feature now, the predicted date of next order, which is one of those maybe machine learning features, which has now kind of been rebranded.
One of my favorites, personally, one of my favorites.
And I was saying to them, like, on the one hand, absolutely, it's important to be able to confidently say, we know that the average time between first and second order is X, but, the average, the mean is different to the mode. And what does it mean for someone who spends $500 on their first order versus $100 on their first order? Yeah. Whereas this feature takes a lot of that guesswork out and builds the scale into the feature, right? If it's their first order and they spend a certain amount of money and they purchase from a certain category, Klaviyo is going to match that customer to similar customers and then personalize the timing of that flow to them very differently to how a first-time customer who spends $500 or a fifth or sixth-time customer who's got their own cadence, and now Klaviyo is actually putting more weight into that customer's repeated cadence than your other customers. So it just simplifies all of that scale.
And you just get that out of the box.
Out of the box,
yeah completely. And that's, Jess, when you were mentioning like the three, how we view the three types of AI, and we were talking about that performance-based AI, I kind of lean towards like that, that machine learning stuff. That's where a lot of brands are going to make their money. Because it is things like predicting the next purchase. There's this other one that's just being released recently, which is product analysis, which effectively allows you to not just predict the next purchase, but when you purchase, say for example, if you're a type of business that has a lot of different SKUs, it'll also predict what goes with the first purchase. So the second purchase is likely to come at this time, and typically when someone buys a jacket, they might get a pair of trousers, or they might get a tie, and they will do that within the next 6 months. So you start to think as a marketer, okay, so what's the way I can get in front of this person at month 5 or month 4 to make sure that when they are looking for that tie or that jacket, that we're front of mind as well.
And I think that feature, which is a bit newer, is also like, it's a really interesting one for brands like, let's say you're an essential oils brand, right? And you sell diffusers, which are maybe only purchased once a year or even less, but you sell essential oils that are purchased every month, right? Klaviyo is doing that heavy lifting now to understand, well, they've bought a diffuser and these essential oils. We know that they're probably going to need more essential oils in a month. So let's recommend that, but also let's not recommend diffusers in that email experience. We're going to recommend the essential oils and, whatever goes with that.
Just
from
a
there.
stack of diffusers in the house.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as the eye can see.
Yeah. We're definitely seeing like our enterprise and mid-market customers are loving the predictive analytics AI. The other side, generative AI, is great. It's definitely a time saver, and for our SMB customers that maybe have like a small team that don't have really strict brand guidelines, that's super helpful, like being able to get inspiration for subject lines, or even like use the template builder to just type out exactly what you want the email to look like, and it just builds it for you.
I've seen the SMS as well, right? Like if you're really racking your brain around, I need to, this is what I want to say, but I need it in 70 characters or whatever. Yeah. You know, let the AI kind of build a more concise message for you.
Does anyone know where the line is though, right? Like we talk about how useful this is for an SMB, maybe with not a lot of resources. It's obviously fantastic. Yep. But as you start getting mid-market enterprise, like where's the line of, oh, we'll just let the AI deal with it, when like, no, we have very strict controls over what is and what isn't published and how things work?
I don't think there is like one line. It really depends on the brand. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Ultimately, that's the intent of that message. Is the intent fulfilled by something that can be dictated via AI? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. We'll run with that because it's going to save some time. Yep. Is the intent? Are we missing, as you said, Jess? Like the brand guidelines, or there's elements that really strict controls over how we message ourselves. It's not going to. It's obviously not hitting that intent at that point in time. So you need to do something else. So you might not be able to use it at all.
Or just call Andzen, right?
Or just call Andzen.
That was the answer I was looking
for. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely from the.
You're like, oh wait, sorry, you're right.
I did take the question slightly different way.
There's definitely lines like, I mean, even for the mid-market and enterprise customers, like we're not talking about teams of 20 people in the marketing team. Like usually the marketing team is like, if you're lucky, a CRM specialist, head of ecom, digital, head of performance. Like maybe there's 5 or 6 people in the team. That would be a pretty big team, I would say.
Yeah.
And even still, like sometimes you just get to a point and you're like, I need a bit of inspiration here. Like, I feel like I've tried everything. Like what else can I do? And it's those times when it's like, okay, well, just try out this subject line generator, and maybe it gives something different, which helps like with creative inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe you call Andzen. I don't know.
I mean, even at Andzen, right? Like we use AI for ideation, right? Like you know what you're doing, you know how to do your job, but like it's quite time consuming to start coming up with different concepts and different ideas for subject lines and content and copy. You know the boundaries which you want to work, but you say, hey, like, can you give me like 10 ideas on this topic, on this tone of voice? And then you get them back and be like, great, version 2 and version 3 are great. Let's expand on those. Give me 10 more of those. And you can ideate really quickly and then write your professional copy, right?
Yeah.
Time is money.
Sprinkle that magic dust on the end and just be like, yeah, cool. Now that's that sort of slight bit of custom bit in there we've added.
Of course.
And that's what we're going to push out there. Now you see that all the time.
Yeah. There's 2 more features, I guess, that I want to talk about that I think from my perspective as a partner and someone who's talking to merchants every day, kind of seeing how they're using Klaviyo, and then just to your point, people kind of maybe hitting their ceiling and saying, let's bring a consultancy in to see what they can talk about. I think the benchmark reporting in Klaviyo is still a really underutilized feature. It's been out for quite a long time now, but I still often find myself explaining to a merchant how Klaviyo puts together that benchmark, like who is in your peer group, is this data reliable or not? And I find a lot of merchants are actually quite shocked when you explain how specific it is and how relevant the data in there is to them to compare themselves to. So Jeremy, just maybe if we could just spend a minute explaining how that works and where they could find it. I think it'd be really valuable.
Yeah, of course. So I think what you're talking about is our peer benchmarking report, which basically compares you to your 100 closest peers on Klaviyo. There's a number of factors that influence this, things like business characteristics, your revenue, how often you send, those types of things. There are some caveats, like if you're an Australian brand, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're up against just the APAC region. It also, doesn't know if you have in-store and online. So there are some things to think about. Attribution modeling also can vary just depending on what peer group you're in. So,
but compared to sort of traditional benchmarking, which was like beauty, automotive.
Exactly. It's levels above.
I think one of the things that really stood out to me when it was released, and I was kind of looking at how they're put together, is that it is looking at your send cadence as well as your list size, right? Which is actually like a very good, helpful way to benchmark yourself. If you're not sending that often and you want to get more out of Klaviyo, you're benchmarked against other people who are also not sending that often, who maybe also want to get more out of Klaviyo. So you're not looking at numbers of someone who's an absolute, Klaviyo god and being like, well, no wonder I'm not kind of doing what they're doing. But at the same time as well, it compares the average, I think it's the average product value in the store as well, which again is really you might be in automotive, but you sell parts that are relatively cheap or parts that are relatively expensive.
It's that real sort of contextual thing that you don't get out of, as you said, like a traditional industry vertical benchmark, which is what we have most of the time and nearly everything else we do. Is just we are in a very sort of unique position being Klaviyo because we do see so many transactions. We do see so many communications that go out. There's not many businesses that can put together that data, which is why when you look at something like the benchmark reporting, for a merchant, it becomes really, really, really powerful.
And it is by vertical as well. So if you're a sporting goods brand, you're not going to be up against automotive. So you get to choose what industry you're in. But the great thing about it is it gives your value in terms of core metrics. So you've got your open rates, your click rates, all of that good stuff. In a percentile. So if there's 100 of you in that peer group, you're going to be either the top performer, number 100, or at the bottom, which is 1, and you're going to get a percentage in between. So you'll get to see whether you're in the top 20th percentile or maybe you're right on the peer median. So it gives quite a granular, detailed view of where you are actually at.
Exactly, and I think it's actually really good. I mean, for us specifically as an agency, it's a great way to say to someone, hey, here is, and if also the report, you can niche down to look at flow triggers. So you could specifically look at people's abandoned checkout flows, right? And that you're comparing your abandoned checkout against other people. And you can say, well, currently I'm in the 33rd percentile. So, I'm in the bottom 2/3. But it will actually show you what the results of people in the upper quadrants are doing. And then you can actually map out, well, if I could get the conversion rate from 1% to 4%, how much more revenue would that make me? And then you start being able to quantify, well, if I'm going to invest time or money into working with a partner for this, there's actually a bit of a roadmap there that you can put together to say, this is how much it might be worth to me a month to improve this. And it's really tangible. Which I think is just as a platform, a great way to empower merchants to make those financial decisions in a really informed way.
And as a partner, we are like, okay, you're here. Benchmark says you should be here. And if you work with us, we'll get you here.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I was just thinking about it from the other perspective. There's quite often, if with the organization's large, it might be an individual whose job is to work on that metric or to improve those rates. If they're rolling back and talking to their bosses, one of the things is how does this benchmark against the industry, or how does this benchmark? It's just a very easy way to kind of illustrate that as well to them and kind of go, we are doing good work. We made the right decisions here, here, and here, and we know that because we went from here to here, and you can see it. We do very well compared to our peer group in this space.
And then I think the one other thing that I wanted to talk about before we cut to the break is probably my favorite feature that I haven't seen implemented once yet, which is the new form A/B testing, which is genuine kind of AI feature, which when I first saw it released, I was like, well, no one's ever going to pay us to do this again. But it genuinely, even from our perspective, the amount of time that it saves, it's a really good example, I think, as an agency. One of the reasons that we chose Klaviyo early on as a platform to build on is because it was so easy to use and we could implement quickly and we could charge our clients less to work with an agency like us and get them better results. I'd love if one of you want to take the floor and talk a little bit about how that feature works. I think a lot of merchants, you could literally pause, or we'll keep listening, but open up Klaviyo and start using this feature right now.
Yeah.
Jess, you want to go?
Well, it's the forms optimization feature that we're talking about. So
I love that you have the official names for them, and I'm just like, that thing that you can use.
Well, that's one Klaviyo employee that has the official names of things. Yeah.
So that fits into optimization AI in terms of those three categories that we were talking about. And optimization AI is really about testing and enhancing what you're already doing. So this feature in particular is if you have a form set up and maybe you just want to find out like what are the best form settings to have. So settings include things like delay time or display type. So for example, entry intent versus exit intent. And what this feature does is in a few clicks of a button, it will test all different types of settings on a bunch of website users and it will just find the best one for you. So all the heavy lifting is done, it's quick, and it's extremely easy to set up.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. On that, a word from our sponsor. I wonder who it's going to be. Klaviyo powers smarter digital relationships, making it easy for businesses to capture, store, analyze, and predictively use their own data to drive measurable high-value outcomes. Klaviyo's modern and intuitive SaaS platform enables business users of any skill level to harness their first-party data from more than 350 integrations to send the right message at the right time across email, SMS, and push notifications. Innovative businesses like Frank Green, Koala, Budgie Smuggler, Who Gives a Crap, and more than 146,000 other paying users leverage Klaviyo to acquire, engage, and retain more customers and grow on their own terms. And we're back. All right, no more AI talk. Now we're moving on to the next overused topic, but we can't avoid it. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's coming. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm keen. I think you guys obviously are talking to merchants all day, every day. I think you're probably seeing some really cool implementations of Klaviyo all the time.
Yep.
A lot of these ideas that we could talk about are probably applicable for sales all year long, but you know, Black Friday is right around the corner. I mean, it's early September when we're recording this, which makes Black Friday feel like it's tomorrow. But yeah, I think
we only have a few more weeks, right? And then it's just like batten the hatches, lock down, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm keen to get some interesting ideas. Maybe Jeremy, if you want to kick us off, anything cool that you've seen recently?
So there's no real like silver bullet with a lot of this stuff. Like I've seen some very, very cool campaigns, and I know Jess can get into some specifics with a few of them. But for me, my favorite Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaigns are always one that's going to be from a communication strategy is going to really do something that suits the user and the customer. You know, if that user, I'm somebody that that tends to click.
But
on
what about
links.
the discounts?
There's a discounts, of course. There's a discounts, but no, I tend to be like personally when I shop, I tend to be someone that clicks on text messages over emails. And that's just me. That's just my personal shopping habit. I buy nearly everything off my phone, and that's the way I do it. So like when I see a brand skip the email and go to straight to the text, I think. They're doing something cool. That's all it takes to impress me. I'm easily impressed. That's all it takes to impress me, that they know enough about the way I purchase to make that decision. We're going to skip in the email. We're going to send the text message.
And what if they send you 47 texts?
That's probably not a good idea.
How about you, Jess?
Well, I was just getting my notes up from last year because every Black Friday I like to just record like any kind of trends that we're noticing in the market, whether they're Klaviyo customers or not. So I'll read you some of the ones that I found last year. So last year, premium fashion brands were promoting account sign-ups to access BFCM sales. So
Love that.
interesting not to just be like building the database, but building actual account activation.
There's a loyalty element to that, like a loyalty in terms of like loyalty to that premium brand as well, which is the thing I really like about that approach.
Yeah, which is we often are recommending to merchants, particularly as a way to keep people shopping in the lead up to Black Friday, is, you know, whether or not you can use loyalty as a way to gatekeep maybe early access or certain aspects of the sale that kind of force people that are sitting on the fence to engage ahead of the sale, so that you've got that captured attention right when the sale kicks off.
Yeah. There's an interesting strategy actually, just pivoting from these notes from last year, but Offends and LSKD have both done this. In the lead up to Black Friday, they do a full website shutdown. And replace the landing page with database signups. Obviously great for database acquisition. Contentious though, because you've got to give up some margin in the lead up.
But you have to be pretty confident in your customer base, knowing that they're going to wait. Right. Like, so any sale that you miss, you're going to pick up on the other end, but maybe not every brand can get away with that strategy.
Yeah, and I think with those brands as well, they've built up to this point where they can do something like that as well. Yeah,
you'd want to be pretty confident. Like, you'd want to make sure that the subscriber lifetime value that you're gaining from these subscribers will outweigh that margin loss. But a really cool database acquisition tactic nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it's great, the element of mystery though, because you need to stand out as well during Black Friday, right? Yep. And so having a really strong kind of mystery element to kick things off makes people be looking out for that email or that SMS from you
100%.
In the kind of mess of noise that they're getting.
Mystery, it's FOMO, there's a bunch of different things going in there psychology-wise. Yeah, absolutely.
What else have I got? So common discounts for 20 to 30% off.
Yeah.
Although some brands looking to move stock offered up to 70% off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is cool. And that's sort of a key to understand margins too, right? Like, it's not just, you have to give away 50% and that's just it and send yourself broke. No, you probably have some products that you either need to shift or that you have particular margin on. Use those as your hooks to get people in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think not last year, the year before, I saw Nathan, one of the founders of Muscle Nation, on LinkedIn, and he replied to a post from someone in the financial advisory space talking about how terrible it is for these brands to be offering these discounts or, certain margins. And I really liked Nathan's response to him was to say, like, if you assume that these merchants or particularly these larger brands aren't building catalogs specifically for Black Friday so that they could build promotions around these specific products that are good for their customers and that leverage and build loyalty by, having those products that match, like, you maybe don't see the bigger picture, but these merchants do.
And that's it. Like to the point about, taking your website completely blank and then putting the sign up form in there. That's an acquisition play for Black Friday, during Black Friday, but the idea is that it doesn't end at that point. Yeah, exactly. It's going to keep going, and that is a big database injection that you're getting of, like, lots of different people, lots of people that are interested in your brand. Yeah. It becomes your job for the rest of the year as a marketer at that point to kind of capitalize on that. And once again, get them the right information at the right time about the right things that they want to hear about, so that they can come back and be a long-term customer as well.
What does everyone think about going early, which just seems to be happening earlier and earlier every year?
I don't actually hate it, to be honest. I think, look, as an agency, we've kind of been around long enough now to know that, like, if they say we want to launch mid-November, just be ready to launch by the start of November so that you're not kind of pulling your hair out when they call you and say, can we launch today? But look, at the end of the day, I think it's very difficult for a merchant to see momentum building, particularly in their vertical, if 2 or 3 other brands start doing something and they're the only ones that aren't. Now, there's definitely a school of thought, like you talk about brands like LSKD, I mentioned Muscle Nation before. These brands, like, there are tens of thousands of people that will wait passionately for those brands to go on sale, right? But if you're not that size, the reality is you need to strike while the iron's hot. And so I think there's definitely brand equity in sticking to your guns and knowing what you're doing. And I think if you announce when you're going to launch, you shouldn't appear to cave. But I think building a strategy around communicating your sale, really important.
And I'm going to bang the drum on, loyalty, retention. I think if you build a customer base, you communicate with them effectively, they're not likely to just go and spend their money somewhere else, right? Like particularly I think in this economic climate, people are building a strong affinity to a brand and will spend their hard-earned dollars on that brand. It's not just about like, oh, I'm going to buy whatever's on sale.
Yeah, yeah.
And we definitely see a difference between like more luxury and higher priced brands versus, like fast fashion.
Yeah.
So last year we saw like streetwear brands would launch earlier, so around that November 6th kind of mark, whereas the luxury brands would hold off. And so part of that, like we mentioned catalogs before as well, like luxury brands have smaller catalogs that they'll offer on sale and they'll hold out to, because they know that if you're loyal to that brand, you're going to wait and you're going to shop. And most of the time they only go on sale once a year anyway, so it's a big event for that brand. Whereas, the more fast fashion, there seems to be like a race to the start, like who's going to jump in first, which might beg the question, like, are customers loyal to those brands? Like, is there a loyalty gap there between premium versus the fast fashion? And then we look at other industries too, like food's a really interesting one, because Black Friday for perishable goods is actually incredibly important, because you need to move that stock because it's going to go, it's got an expiry date. And I love it when people say, oh, Black Friday's like, you got to consider environmental factors, which is absolutely true. Like, obviously brands don't want to promote like overconsumption and things like that during Black Friday. But for industries like food, if they don't sell that stock, it goes to waste.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And shout out to one of our wonderful clients, Core Power Foods. But it's an interesting one for them. Like, their meals are frozen, which, is a big part of that is around the nutritional benefits of how their food is stored and delivered and when you eat it. But they genuinely talk about like people are doing months worth of their groceries during Black Friday with them, right? They buy in bulk and they literally have chest freezers downstairs, and they'll buy a couple of months worth of groceries at 10 or 15% off. It's very savvy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Knock 10, 15% off your grocery bill. I can't believe I never thought about doing that. It's a very small
like
idea.
Protein and supplements, like that kind of thing, because you're going to use that in like 30 scoops or whatever it is. So you can kind of get it at the cusp of its expiry, and you can use it with plenty of time to spare. So
absolutely.
I'm keen, Jess. I know you have one sale that in particular that you really like that you want to chat about. I also have one note that I want to hit on before Black Friday as well, so I might give you the floor.
So this is one of my favorite brands. It's Ultraviolet, and it's particularly important because today is Skinvestment Day, which is a promo that they do every single year. It's buy one, get one free usually, and if you don't know Ultraviolet, it is sun cream, essentially, or skin cream, as I call it. And every year they just do something incredible in terms of like marketing strategy. Last year they did like an amazing race kind of hunt. And
oh wow,
it's interesting that it's always in September, and they don't usually do like a massive Black Friday. So I guess this could be considered going early, but it's going so far early that it stands
It stands
own.
out. Absolutely.
Yeah, completely on its own.
And so every year they must have like a $5,000 budget or something that they use, because last year it was an amazing race, and at the end of the race, the prize was a $5,000 briefcase plus a year's worth of SPF.
Wow.
Nice.
And to find the briefcase, you had to go through all of these like digital clues. And so it started off that they would promote the Investment Day, you would sign up to the database and you would get the first clue via email. And then the email clue would send you to TikTok, and then the TikTok clue would send you to Instagram, and so on. And it would go through all of their different like digital channels. But it was educational content along the way. So like, why should you use SPF, all that kind of good stuff. And then at the end, you ended up on the website and you had to answer a quiz that you would only know if you did that amazing race hunt.
I love that.
Only the real fans.
Right? And as a real fan, like I got to the end and like wasn't the first one, so I didn't get the briefcase.
No $5,000.
No $5,000.
Is a briefcase worth $5,000, or there's just $5,000 in cash in the briefcase?
It's cash.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you get a year's worth of SPF too. Yeah. And so, like, even though I didn't win, obviously shopped because I went through that effort and I just loved the brand. But this year they've done something different and still cool with that $5,000. And they've got an in-person like spin the wheel in Melbourne, which is super fun. But also they're doing like more with referral. So this year it was like, and there may be more to come. Like, this is only what I saw this morning, but it was refer a friend and go in the chance to split $5,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is so cool and like a little bit different to your regular like. Give $10,
exactly.
Get $10 type thing.
Yeah, database building. That's what we like to hear.
Build that database.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what else they do this year, but that one was something that has stood out the last few years.
Yeah, great. For me, this is stolen, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I was at an event recently and listening to a merchant speak, and I think it's something worth talking about now because this idea does take a lot of time to plan out. But this merchant was saying that after last year, they had noticed, they were asking themselves, how are we going to solve this problem about our sales in October? Because they'd noticed a big drop off in sales in the latter part of October, and then things picked up when they launched their sale finally in November. And the answer that they came up with was to announce and stagger some collection releases through September and October, do like fortnightly releases of a limited run of products. So they basically scheduled a few releases, and the limited run nature meant that, if you didn't shop, you were almost certainly going to miss out. And
so they were on sale for that time, and then after that they were not on sale, or
no,
the product itself was limited.
Yeah, the product itself was limited, so stock was fairly limited. So they actually had to come up with some products and get them manufactured. And they were a clothing brand, so it was relatively easy to come up. As easy as obviously their bread and butter. Yeah. To put together some really limited run collections, but they marketed these collections to be very much like, there's only 500 pieces of this shirt and 200 pieces of this jacket. And it meant that people had a real reason to keep shopping during that period. There was obviously a level of exclusivity to these products. They have a younger demographic. So, being able to be seen on TikTok and Instagram in these products was going to be a bit of a status mark, I guess. Yeah. But also it allowed them to not only solve that problem in the lead up to Black Friday of being able to have sales, but it also allowed them to kind of build a bit of momentum going into the Black Friday sale. Yeah. And when they were talking about it, I was thinking a common thing that we talk to merchants about, particularly that have loyalty programs, is how can you use that loyalty program to incentivize early starting or early access to those Black Friday sales. And so if you could put those two ideas together, you could really actually supercharge your sales throughout October to give people a double reason to shop. Like, here's this limited product, I really want to get it, but also if I get it, I might move out of the first tier and into the second, or out of the second and into the third, and get, 2 days early access to the Black Friday sale instead of one.
Because you don't want to cannibalize your sales, right? You don't want sales to start drying up now, and then whatever you pick up is just the average of what you would have had between now and the end of the sales season, right? You want it to keep going, and then the Black Friday side might to be the boost on top of that. Yeah.
And what I also love about that as well is it's giving you a reason, and this is with both of them, both of the examples that you guys have mentioned, it's giving you a reason to constantly communicate beyond just... here's some product, but here's something that's a limited run. I'm assuming it's going out to VIP customers or like high loyalty customers or whatever. Because I've seen that done with a few brands. Like, I've seen a clothing brand do it where it's kind of a streetwear label from the US, where they will release products on a Monday. And it's very limited run, but it has nothing to do with it doesn't really have much to do with clothing. It'll be like some sort of...
like a pen or some sort of accessory.
Something like that.
And
like
you could use SMS for that, right? Because it breaks out of the standard
100%.
discount email.
And if the person's loyal enough, because it's such a limited run product, they'll be happy to get that text message, because then they'll be like, oh, thanks for letting me know. I'm going to jump on and buy this because there's only 500 of them made, or whatever it may be.
Well, I think we could talk Black Friday, Cyber Monday strategies all day. Yeah. But we don't have all day. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
we have our free add to cart flow that Andzen have put together. So if you jump on to andzen.co/podcast, leave your details. Not only will we tell you about all the upcoming episodes, but we can also send you a highly converting, high ROI. Well, I mean, it's huge ROI, like I said last time, because it's free.
Yeah, it's infinite ROI technically.
So yeah, if you want that, jump on andzen.co/podcast. Thanks again, team.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank you guys. Cheers.